All right, beautiful people. Happy Tuesday. It is the last day of November, November the 30th, 2021. It is day 315 of year 3 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets, and of the 3-year consecutive day count, day 983. Today we're reading Psalms 140 through 143, and we're going to start in we're going to finish chapter 14. Finish chapter 14. And we're going to pick that up on page 402. All right, beautiful people. Let's go ahead and get started with the Shema chapter. There we go. Yep, 402. Okay. All right, y'all. Remember, the Shema is found within chapter 6 of Deuteronomy. Just pulled up. The title is the chapter is entitled "A Call for Wholehearted Commitment." Shayla, hey girl, hey. These are the commands. Excuse me. These are the commands, decrees, and regulations that Yahuwah your God commanded me to teach you. You must obey them in the land you are about to enter and occupy. And you and your children and grandchildren must fear Yahuwah your God as long as you live. If you obey all his decrees and commands, you will enjoy a long life. Listen closely, Israel, and be careful to obey. Then all will go well with you, and you will have many children in the land flowing with milk and honey, just as Yahuwah, the God of your ancestors, promised you. Listen, O Israel, Yahuwah is our God, and he is our God alone. And you must love Yahuwah your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength. And you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands that I am giving you today. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you are at home and when you're on the road, when you're going to bed and when you're getting up. Tie them to your hands and wear them on your forehead as reminders. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Yahuwah your God will soon bring you into the land he swore to give you when he made a vow to your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It is a land stocked with large, prosperous cities that you did not build. I skipped down and I read the second line under it. It is a land with large, prosperous cities that you did not build. The houses will be richly stocked with goods you did not produce. You will draw water from cisterns you did not dig, and you will eat from vineyards and olive trees you did not plant. When you have eaten your fill in this land, be careful not to forget Yahuwah who rescued you from slavery in the land of Egypt. You must fear Yahuwah your God and serve him. When you take an oath, you must use only his name. You must not worship any of the gods of the neighboring nations, for Yahuwah your God, who lives among you, is a jealous God. He will flare up against you, and he will wipe you from the face of the earth. You must not test Yahuwah your God as you did when you complained at Massah. You must diligently obey the commands of Yahuwah your God, all the laws and decrees he has given you. Do what is right and good in Yahuwah's sight, so all will go well with you. Then you will enter and occupy the good land that Yahuwah swore to give your ancestors. You will drive out all the enemies living in the land, just as Yahuwah said you would. In the future, your children will ask you, what is the meaning of these laws, decrees, and regulations that Yahuwah, our God, has commanded us to obey? Then you must tell them, because you was trying to be extra quiet. Then you must tell them, we were Pharaoh's slaves in Egypt, but Yahuwah brought us out of Egypt with his strong hand. Yahuwah did miraculous signs and wonders before our eyes, dealing terrifying blows against Egypt and Pharaoh and all his people. He brought us out of Egypt so he could give us this land he had sworn to give our ancestors. And Yahuwah, our God, commanded us to obey all these decrees and to fear him, so he can continue to bless us and preserve our lives as he has done to this day. For we will be counted as righteous when we obey all the commands Yahuwah our God has given us. All right, beautiful people, so let's hop right to it. Psalms 140. This is for the choir director, a psalm of David. O Yah, rescue me from evil people. Protect me from those who are violent, those who plot evil in their hearts, and stir up trouble all day long. Their tongues sting like a snake. The venom of a viper drips from their lips. O Yah, keep me out of the hands of the wicked. Protect me from those who are violent, for they are plotting against me. The proud have set a trap to catch me. They have set out a net. All right, babe. I know your lips are freezing.
When the truck's up. All right, I'll call you in a minute.
Okay. Drive safe. I said to Yahuwah, you are my God. Listen, O Yah, to my cries for mercy. O sovereign Lord, the strong one who rescued me. You protected me on the day of battle. Yah, do not let evil people have their way. Do not let their evil schemes succeed, or they will become proud. Let my enemies be destroyed by the very evil they have planned for me. Let burning coals fall down on their heads. Let them be thrown into the fire or into watery pits from which they can escape. Don't let liars prosper here in our land. Cause great cause great disasters to fall on the violent. But I know Yahuwah will help those they persecute. He will give justice to the poor. Surely righteous people are praising your name. The godly will live in your presence. Next chapter, Psalm 141. It is a psalm of David. O Yah, I am calling to you. Please hurry. Listen when I cry to you for help. Accept my prayer as incense offered to you, and my upraised hands as an evening offering. Take control of what I say, O Yah, and guard my lips. Don't let me drift toward evil or take part in acts of wickedness. Don't let me share in the delicacies of those who do wrong. Let the godly strike me. It will be a kindness. If they correct me, it is soothing medicine. Don't let me refuse it. But I pray constantly against the wicked and their deeds. When their leaders are thrown down from a cliff, the wicked will listen to my words and find them true. Like rocks brought up by a plow, the bones of the wicked will lie scattered without burial. I look to you for help, O sovereign Lord. You are my refuge. Don't let them kill me. Keep me from the traps they have set for me, from the snares of those who do wrong. Let the wicked fall into their own nets, but let me escape. Last chapter for today, Psalm chapter 142. Did I say through 143? I said through 143. This is not the last one. We're going to read 143 after this. A psalm of David regarding his experience in the cave, a prayer. I cry out to Yahuwah. I plead for Yahuwah's mercy. I pour out my complaints before him and tell him all my troubles. When I am overwhelmed, you alone know the way I should turn. Wherever I go, my enemies have set traps for me. I look for someone to come and help me, but no one gives me a passing thought. No one will help me. No one cares a bit about what happens to me. Then I pray to you, O Yah. I say, you are my place of refuge. You are all I really want in life. Hear my cry, for I am very low. Rescue me from my persecutors, for they are too strong for me. Bring me out of prison, so I can thank you. The godly will crowd around me, for you are good to me. Last chapter for today, Psalm chapter 143. It is a psalm of David. Hear my prayer, O Yah. Listen to my plea. Answer me, because you are faithful and righteous. Don't put your servant on trial, for no one is innocent before you. My enemy has chased me. He has knocked me to the ground and forces me to live in darkness like those in a grave. I am losing all hope. I am paralyzed with fear. I remember the days of old. I ponder all your great works, and I think about what you have done. I lift my hands to you in prayer. I thirst for you as parched land thirsts for rain. Come quickly, Yah, and answer me, for my depression deepens. Don't turn away from me, or I will die. Let me hear of your unfailing love each morning, for I am trusting you. Show me where to walk, for I give myself to you. Rescue me from my enemies, Yah. I run to you to hide me. Teach me to do your will, for you are my God. May your gracious spirit lead me forward on a firm footing. For the glory of your name, O Yah, preserve my life. Because of your faithfulness, bring me out of this distress. In your unfailing love, silence all my enemies, and destroy all my foes, for I am your servant. All right, beautiful people. That is our reading for today. That was Psalms chapters 140 through 143. Now let's pick up on page 402 of Shakespeare's Secret Messiah. Okay. I was thinking I was going to go back a little bit, but not too far. I will go back this one paragraph. Okay, so we'll backtrack to page 401, down at the second to the last paragraph from the page. The following part of the story contains its most important message. To understand its real meaning requires knowing that Josephus was one of the group that created the Gospels to act as a type of the story of Titus's campaign. Understanding the typological relationship between Jesus' ministry and Titus's campaign reveals that the following passage establishes Vespasian as God the Father and his son Titus as the Son of God that the New Testament predicts will destroy Jerusalem. This moment is the beginning of Christianity as we know it. Quote, when Josephus heard him give those orders, he said that he had somewhat in his mind that he would willingly say to himself alone. When therefore they were all ordered to withdraw, excepting Titus and two of their friends, he said, Thou, O Vespasian, thinkest no more than that thou hast taken Josephus himself captive, but I come to thee as a messenger of greater tidings. For I had not been sent by God to thee. I knew what was the law of the Jews in this case. Let me read that again. That's a question. Hold on. Thou, O Vespasian, thinkest no more than that thou hast taken Josephus himself captive, but I have come to thee as a messenger of greater tidings. For had not I been sent by God to thee, I knew what was the law of the Jews in this case, and how it becomes generals to die. Dost thou send me to Nero? For why? Are Nero's successors till they come to thee still alive? O thou, O Vespasian, art Caesar and emperor, thou and this thy son. Bind me now still faster, and keep me for thyself, for thou, O Caesar, art not only Lord over me, but over the land and the sea. When he had said this, Vespasian supposed that Josephus said this as a cunning trick in order to his own preservation, but in a little time he was convinced and believed what he said to be true, God himself erecting his expectations so as to this think of obtaining the empire, and by other signs foreshowing his advancement. Yet did he not set Joseph at liberty from his hands, but bestowed on him suits of clothes and other precious gifts. He treated him also in a very obliging manner, and continued to do so. End quote. And that's Wars of the Jews, Volume 3, Chapter 8, page 9. For clarification, the following chart outlines the relationship between the parallel escape stories. The first 7 parallels have puzzled scholars. With the discovery of the 8th parallel, however, the meaning of the others becomes clear. Yel Shalom. Okay, y'all. And it's given a list of 8. The first one, both takes place during a Roman siege. Number 2, both involve the defection of a Jewish priest to the Romans. 3, in each, the priest figuratively returns from the dead. Number 4, both involve a waiting period of 3 days. Number 5, in each, the priest is taken to Vespasian. Number 6, in each, the priest applies the star prophecy to Vespasian. Number 7, In each, Vespasian rewards the priests. And number 8, both stories are the beginning of a religion. In my opinion, the parallels between Zacchaeus and Josephus' escape stories were deliberately created. Such parallel tales could not, by chance, also have been the beginnings of the two religions that superseded Messianic Judaism. This is self-evident. The story of Zacchaeus' escape from Jerusalem was deliberately based upon the depiction of Josephus' escape from Joppa so as to establish that the founding of Christianity had been a prophetical type of the founding of rabbinical Judaism. In other words, the story of Zacchaeus' escape is based on the same typological system the Flavians used to inform posterity that Christianity was a Flavian religion. By linking the story of Zacchaeus' meeting with Vespasian to that system, the author of the Talmudic tale deliberately identified rabbinical Judaism as another Flavian religion. In fact, the entire passage in the Talmud containing Zacchaeus' surrender to Vespasian is a symbolic landscape that was designed to notify posterity that Caesar was the God that rabbinical Judaism has worshipped. To explain how the passage achieves this requires a detailed explanation. Therefore, the version of the story found in Gittin 55 through 57 and the Babylon Talmud is presented below, interspersed with the analysis. The reader will note that the passage is made up of a series of distinct satires, and that each of these satires seems, on its surface, unfocused and incoherent. However, when these seemingly unrelated and incoherent tales are viewed as a unified satire regarding how and why the Flavians created rabbinical Judaism, they suddenly come to life and make perfect sense. The first satire describes a kamza, Kamza, and a bar kamza. Though each of the satires is a distinct story, as a group they create a chronologically accurate depiction of the war between the Romans and the Jews. Thus, the first satire describes the refusal of the Jews to sacrifice the Roman emperor, the act of defiance that precipitated the war. The tale contains a pertinent witticism. The central characters' names are Chasma and Bar Chasma, meaning literally locust and son of the locust. The story describes a son of the locust who has his identity mistaken for someone named Locust. The confusion regarding the identity of a son caused by different individuals having similar names is a central comic theme within the Gospels and is repeated here. Further, the son who had his identity mistaken in the Gospels is Titus. Further, the son who had his identity mistaken in the Gospels, Titus, was like Chasma in that he had a father named for an insect, Vespasian, whose name means wasp. The satire also clearly states that the Romans attempted to buy their way into the Jews' religious graces before the war began, a fact also shown in Caesar's Messiah. Quote, the destruction of Jerusalem came through a Kamza and a Bar Kamza in this way. A certain man had a friend named Kamza and an enemy named Bar Kamza. He once made a party and said to his servant, go and bring Kamza. The man went and brought Bar Kamza. When the man who gave the party found him there, he said, see, you tell tales about me. What are you doing here? Get out, said the other. Since I am here, let me stay, and I will pay you for what I eat and drink. He said, I won't. Then let me give you half the cost of the party. No, said the other. Then let me pay for the whole party. He still said, no, and he took him by the hand and put him out. Said the other, Since the rabbis were sitting there and did not stop him, this shows that they agreed with him. I will go and inform them to the government. He went and said to the emperor, the Jews are rebelling against you. He said, how can I tell? He said to him, send them an offering and see whether they will offer it on the altar. So he sent them with a fine calf. While on the way, he made a blemish on its upper lip, or as some say, on the white of its eye, in a place that the Jews counted as a blemish, but they do not. The rabbis were inclined to offer it in order not to offend the government. Said Zechariah ben Abkulas to them, people will say that blemished animals are offered on the altar. They then proposed to kill Bar Kamza so that he would not go and inform against them. But Zechariah b. Abkulas said to them, is one who makes a blemish on consecrated animals to be put to death? Johanan thereupon remarked, through the scrupulousness of Zechariah b. Abkulas, our house has been destroyed, our temple burnt, and we ourselves exiled from our land. End quote. And that's Gittin, page 55 through 56. The story then presents another satire, this time regarding the Emperor Nero. In it, Nero is said to have converted to Judaism, and that Rabbi Meir was descended from him. Rabbi Meir was, next to Zakkai, the most important figure in the creation of rabbinical Judaism. He was Zakkai's student and subsequent head of the academy. He was also the individual who organized the Mishnah, the work that was used as the foundation for the Talmud. This is the first of 4 descriptions in the story of either a member of the patrician class that either converted or is considering converting to Judaism, or of a Jew who is described as a member of Roman nobility. In the context of the story, this repetition of this theme makes the point that the original leaders of rabbinical Judaism were either Romans posing as Jews or Jews who were on Rome's payroll. As we continue, we will go into this subject in depth. Notice that Nero is afraid that the blame for the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem will fall upon him and not the individuals who actually performed the acts, the Flavians. This satirical bit may document a strategy on the part of the Flavians, who indeed saw themselves as the Holy One, to hoist the blame for the war onto Nero and his lineage, the Julio-Claudians. By doing so, the Flavians may have hoped to deflect any impulse towards revenge on the part of the zealot survivors away from their family. Nero was also set up as a villain of Christianity by the Flavians, both in Revelation and in their official histories of the era. Quote, he, the emperor, sent against them Nero and Caesar. Read it again. He, the emperor, sent against them Nero, the Caesar. As he was coming, he shot an arrow towards the east, and it fell in Jerusalem. He then shot one towards the west, and it again fell on Jerusalem. He shot towards all 4 points of the compass, and each time it fell in Jerusalem. He said to a certain boy, repeat to me the last verse of the scripture you have learned. He said, and I will lay my vengeance upon Edom by the hand of my people Israel. He said, the Holy One, blessed be he, desires to lay waste to his house and to lay blame on me. So he ran away and became a proselyte, and Rabbi Meir was descended from him. End quote. And that's found in Gittin chapter 56. It almost sounds like Nebuchadnezzar when y'all told him to go destroy Jerusalem, right? And remember, he was going through all that. He was like, nope, bring me the 8 ball. We're the wise men. I ain't going to Jerusalem. He said, okay, Jerusalem. He really wanted to go destroy Edom, and it was another place. It was 2 other places he was going to go instead of Jerusalem, because he knew he fought for his people. He said, yeah, I ain't going to Jerusalem. Nope, but every time he cast lots and had the wise men to tell them what the stars in the sky was saying. I need you to do some astrology or something. Show me what's to come. It always landed on him going to ransack Jerusalem. The next satire deals with the onset of the war. Notice that it also describes another connection between the Roman patrician class and the Jews in power. In this case, a Jew of great wealth is described as having his seat or origins in the nobility of Rome. Quote, he then sent against them Vespasian the Caesar, who came and besieged Jerusalem for 3 years. There were in it 3 men of great wealth, Nakdeman B. Gorion, Ben Kalba Shabua, and Ben Zidzith Hak-Keseth. Nakdeman B. Gorion was so called because the sun continued to shine for his sake. Ben Kalba Shabua was so called because one would go into his house hungry as a dog and come out full. Ben Zidzith Hak-Keseth was so called because his fringes, zitzith, used to trail on cushions, keseth. Others say he derived the name from the fact that his seat, or kis, K-I-S-E, was among the nobility of Rome. End quote. And that's Gittin, page 56. The passage next records the onset of the famine that gripped Jerusalem during the Roman siege. It purports that the rabbis caused the famine by deliberately setting fire to the stores of grain owned by the wealthy Jews after the Birioni, a word describing the zealots who had taken control of the city, prevented them from making peace with the Romans. This sabotage of the zealots by the rabbis is logical, given that Herod, who was described by Josephus as a person not wanting Jews around him, had previously purged the Sanhedrin of anyone he suspected of Maccabean leanings and installed rabbis of his liking. In other words, there would have been a number of Jewish leaders in Jerusalem at this time that held an anti-zealot, pro-Herod Roman perspective. The satire creates a picture of 2 types of Jews, one group fighting the Romans and another group of wealthy Jews with connections to Rome who fought against the zealots. Quote, one of these said to the people of Jerusalem, I will keep you in wheat and barley. A second said, I will keep them in wine, oil, and salt. The third said, I will keep them in wood. The rabbis considered the offer of wood the most generous, since Ar-Hizda used to hand all his keys to his servant, save that of the wood, for Ar-Hizda used to say, a storehouse of wheat requires 60 stores of wood for fuel. These men were in a position to keep the city for 21 years. The Birioni were then in the city. The rabbi said to them, let us go out and make peace with the Romans. They would not let them, but on the contrary said, let us go out and fight them. The rabbi said, you will not succeed. Then they rose up and burnt the stores of wheat and barley, so that a famine ensued. End quote, and that's Gittin, page 56. The following passage is the most important in the story, in that it provides clear proof that the author is aware of the comic framework that exists between the Gospels and the works of Josephus documented in Caesar's Messiah. Specifically, it repeats the central concept of the Gospels / Josephus typology, that of a Mary who ate her child during the siege of Jerusalem. Let me go read that again. Specifically, it repeats the central concept of the Gospels and Josephus typology, that of a Mary who ate her child during the siege of Jerusalem. In the following passage, a Martha, the Aramaic word for Mary, is described as slowly succumbing to the famine that occurred during the siege. When she ventured out to find food, some dung stuck to her foot, and she died. Martha, the daughter of Boethius, was one of the richest women in Jerusalem. She sent her maidservants out, saying, go and bring me some fine flour. By the time he went, it was sold out. He came and told her, there is no fine flour. I'm sorry, I said maidservant. She sent her manservant out, saying, go and bring me some fine flour. By the time he went, it was sold out. He came and told her, there is no fine flour, but there is white flour. She then said to him, go and bring me some. By the time he went, he found the white flour sold out. He came and told her, there is no white flour, but there is only dark flour. She said to him, go and bring me some. By the time he went, it was sold out. He returned and said to her, there is no dark flour, but there is barley flour. She said, go and bring me some. Like, you would have thought he would have got the hint. You know what? I went back and forth a couple times. Whatever's left, I'm going to go ahead and get this. And be like, look, this is what was left by the time I got there. She said to him, go and bring me some. By the time he went, it was sold out. He returned and said to her, there is no dark flour, but there is barley flour. She said, go and bring me some. By the time he went, this was also sold out. She had taken off her shoes, but she said, I will go out and see if I can find anything to eat. Some dung stuck to her foot, and she died. Rabban Johanan B. Zakkai applied to her this verse, quote, the tender and delicate woman among you that would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground, end quote. And that's Gittin, page 56. That sound familiar, don't it? Let's keep on reading. The Martha in this passage is the sole Mary described in the Talmud. This parallels Wars of the Jews, which also has only one Mary depicted within it, the Mary who was starving during the same siege. The author of the Talmudic passage links these Marys by stating that Rabbi Zakkai applied a passage to Martha from Deuteronomy regarding a tender and delicate woman. Okay, he put it in here. Zakkai's use of the phrase, it says phase, but it should be phrase. Zakkai's use of the phrase from Deuteronomy links the Martha in the Talmud to the typological framework that exists between the cannibal Mary in Wars of the Jews and the Mary in the Gospels, because the phrase he applies is only the beginning of the biblical passage. Following is the complete passage. Quote, the tender and delicate woman among you that would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground, for delicateness and tenderness, her eyes shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter, and toward the young one that cometh out from between her feet, and toward the children that she shall bear. For she shall eat them for want of all things secretly in the siege, wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee in thy gates. End quote. And that's Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 56 through 57. Deuteronomy 28 is the only passage within the Bible that describes a woman eating her son, let alone having done so during a siege, and therefore it is implausible that its application by Zakkai to a Mary who, like the Mary who ate her son in Wars of the Jews, was starving during the same siege, could have been accidental. Only by applying this exact biblical passage to a woman named Martha could the author of the story in the Talmud have used Josephus's cannibal Mary as a type, and thereby linked his tale to the typological system between the Gospels and the Wars of the Jews. No other name or passage would have created this effect. This is why the author concocted the ludicrous story regarding Martha stepping on dung and perishing. This obviously fictitious story enabled its reader to cleverly apply the beginning of the needed scriptural phrase without overtly stating the parts of the passage that related to a mother eating her child. The author expected that a reader who knew of the typological system between the Gospels and the Wars of the Jews would be able to see the unwritten connection. Notice that this implies that the author expected that the typological system between the Gospels and the wars of the Jews to eventually be discovered and provide a method to understand the real meaning of the story of Zacchaeus' meeting with Vespasian. Also of interest is the fact that since the author is using the typological relationship between the Christian Gospels and wars of the Jews, this would indicate that rabbinical Judaism sprang from Christianity, not vice versa, a complete reversal of the heretofore historical understanding. Let me read that again. Also of interest is the fact that since the author is using the typological relationship between the Christian Gospels and the wars of the Jews, this would indicate that rabbinical Judaism sprang from Christianity, not vice versa, a complete reversal of the heretofore historical understanding. A fact that supports the above interpretation of the passage is that the Talmudic story regarding the cannibal Mary also contains the tale of Zacchaeus' escape and subsequent application of the star prophecy to Vespasian, which, as shown above, is a perfect parallel to the tale of Josephus' escape. This combination of parallels would not have occurred by chance. There is another, more complicated link between the cannibal Marys and the Talmud and Wars of the Jews. Miriam is the Hebrew analog for the Aramaic name Martha and can also be translated as Mary. Therefore, the Martha, daughter of Boethius, in the Talmud was based upon a real person, Miriam, the daughter of Boethius, the second of Herod's wives, who were named Miriam. Why did the author choose, and clearly he did this deliberately, to link his Martha to the wife of Herod, who was the daughter of Boethius? Bear in mind that the real daughter of Boethius was not contemporaneous with the events depicted in the story. She had lived nearly 100 years before the destruction of the temple. I believe the author chose to name his character Martha, daughter of Boethius, to identify the true origin of rabbinical Judaism and to differentiate that religion from the other Flavian invention, Christianity. Josiah, Belinda Brown, Shalom. To explain the author's point, here requires some background information. Though the effort by Rome to control Judaism had its roots as far back as Julius Caesar, Rabbinical Judaism truly began when, following his destruction of the Maccabean Sanhedrin, Herod brought in a priest named Boethius from Egypt to take control of Jewish governance and legal interpretation. It was with the introduction of Boethius that the Sanhedrin was transformed from a Maccabean religious organization into the Romanized bureaucracy that eventually controlled the academy where Rabbinical Judaism originated. The Herodian Sanhedrin was an essential part of what became Rabbinical Judaism and will be discussed at length below. However, the point that the author is making here by naming his cannibal Mary, the daughter of Boethius, is simply that she was of a different background than Herod's first wife, named Miriam, who was a Maccabean. In other words, the author of the Talmudic tale named his Mary Boethius because that family was associated with the founding of the Herodian Sanhedrin, the organization that became Rabbinical Judaism. This identifies Rabbinical Judaism as a separate religion from Christianity, albeit in a complicated manner, because the cannibal Mary, who was involved with its origin, was a Boethius and not a Maccabean, as had been the case with Christianity. Each of the individual tales that make up the Talmud story of Zacchaeus' escape is part of the symbolic landscape the author is creating. As noted above, the individual tales are incoherent in and of themselves, but when viewed as a unified satire depicting the Flavian invention of rabbinical Judaism, they make perfect sense. This is also the case with all of the applications of phrases of Scripture by Zakai to the various individuals within the passage. In each case, the application seems incoherent in and of itself, but when seen as a method of creating a subtext linking the Flavians to the origin of the religion, all of the applications become coherent. Quote, some report that she ate a fig left by Zadok and became sick and died. For Zadok observed fast for 40 years in order that Jerusalem might not be destroyed. And he became so thin that when he ate anything, the food could be seen as it passed through his throat. When he wanted to restore himself, they used to bring him a fig, and he used to suck the juice and throw the rest away. When Martha was about to die, she brought out all of her gold and silver and threw it in the street, saying, what is the good of this to me? Thus giving effect to the verse, they shall cast their silver into the street. End quote. That's found in Gittin, page 56. Gittin is spelled Gittin, just in case you wanted to know. Gittin. Once again, the author has chosen to use a passage that is clearly related to the siege of Jerusalem, Ezekiel chapter 7. Moreover, Ezekiel chapter 7 describes an ending to the contract between God and Israel. Now, quote, now is the end come upon thee, and I will send mine anger upon thee, and will judge thee according to thy ways, and will recompense upon thee all thine abominations. And mine eye shall not spare thee, neither will I have pity, but I will recompense thy ways upon thee, and thine abominations shall be in the midst of thee, and ye shall know that I am the Lord. Thus saith the Lord God, an evil, and only evil, behold, is come, an end is come, the end is come, it watcheth for thee, behold, it is come, they will cast their silver into the streets. End quote. And that's Ezekiel chapter 7, verses 3 through 6 and verse 19. By the application of Ezekiel 7, at this precise point, the author cleverly sets the stage for the passage that immediately follows, in which Zakai applied the star prophecy to Vespasian and thereby ended Israel's covenant with Yahweh and turned Judaism into a Flavian religion. The application of the passage from Ezekiel is the exact perspective of the Flavians and the Gospels. That is, that the Jews were wicked because they had rebelled from Rome, and that the Lord Titus came and punished them. At the very least, by the application of this passage from Ezekiel, the author is implying that the Flavians were the agents of God's wrath. In the above passage, the author also continues to mimic the black comedy regarding cannibalism found in the New Testament. The passage that describes the tender and delicate woman refers to her children as fruit. Quote, you shall eat the fruits of your own body, the flesh of your sons and your daughters, whom the Lord has given you, in the siege and desperate straits in which your enemy shall distress you. End quote. And that's found in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 53. Thus, the fig that she and Zadok ate was in fact her child. As Martha ate the fig after Zadok had sucked out all of its juice, it naturally could not pass through her throat. Notice that the author highlighted the image of the juice passing through Zadok's throat, and she choked to death. The viciousness of this strain of comedy indicates that not only was the author of the passage not Jewish, but he or she had a passionate hatred of them. Note that the Talmudic depiction of Jerusalem's destruction is also Roman in its coldness and utter lack of any compassion for the plight of the Jews and the destruction of their sacred city. Compare the attitude with that of the author of the following Dead Sea Scroll, which describes a similar event. Quote, all our misdeeds, and it is not within our power, for we did not obey. Judah, that all these things should befall us by evil, his covenant. Woe to us, has become burned by fire and overthrown. Okay, so this sounds jumbled up, but if you have the book, you will see that between each like sentence or each incoherent piece, there is ellipses or like the three dots, which is letting you know there is more here and it's jumping to another portion. So a lot of the Dead Sea Scrolls are fragmented and they're not like whole complete sentences. So that's what's put in here, right? I started again. Compare that attitude with that of the author of the following Dead Sea Scroll, which describes a similar event. Quote, all our misdeeds, and it is not within our power, for we did not obey. Judah, that all these things should befall us by evil, his covenant. Woe to us, has become burnt by fire and overthrow. Our destruction, and there is nothing pleasing in it, in his holy courts have become. Jerusalem, city of the sanctuary, has been handed over to wild animals, and there is no, and he avenues, all her fine buildings are desolate. There are no pilgrims in them, all the cities of Judah. Our inheritance has become like the desert. No, we no longer hear rejoicing, and that there is none who seeks God, no one to heal our wounds, all our enemies, our offenses, our sins. Woe to us, for the wrath of God has come upon, that we should congregate with the dead. Like an unloved wife, Israel neglected her babies, and my dear people have become cruel. Her young men are desolate, the children of, fleeing from winter when their hands are weak. Ash heaps are now the home of the house of Israel. They ask for water, but there is no attendant. Those who were worth their weight in gold. There is nothing to delight those who drew their strength from scarlet clothing, nor fine gold, their garments bearing jewelry. No longer do my hands tile purple stuff. Has risen, the sensitive women of Zion with them. How lonely she sits in a city, once full of people. The princess of all the nations is as desolate as an abandoned woman, and all her daughters are likewise abandoned, like a woman abandoned and miserable, whose husband has left her. All her fine buildings and walls are like a barren woman. All her streets are like a woman confined, like a woman whose life is bitter, and all of her daughters are like those in mourning for their husbands, like those left bereft of thief-only children. Jerusalem keeps on weeping, tears on her cheek for her children. And that's found in a Dead Sea Scroll. Was it 4Q 179? Dead Sea Scroll, I think the Qumran Cave 4, maybe Jar or Scroll 179. I forget how to read that reference, but I know it's like the fourth cave where it was found in. Okay, end quote. The Talmudic story then goes on to describe the events that led up to Zedekiah's escape and meeting with Vespasian. Quote, Abba Sikra, the head of the Birioni in Jerusalem, was the son of the sister of Rabban Johanan ben Zakkai. The latter came to him, saying, come and visit me privately. When he came, he said to him, how long are you going to carry on in this way and kill all the people with starvation? He replied, what can I do? If I say a word to them, they will kill me. He said, devise some plan for me to escape. Perhaps I shall be able to save a little. He said to him, pretend to be ill and let everyone come and inquire about you. Bring something evil smelling and put it by you so that they will say you are dead. Let thee and your disciples get under your bed, but no others, so that they shall not notice that you are still light, since they know that a living being is lighter than a corpse. He did so, and our Eleazar went under their bed coffin from one side and our Joshua from the other. When they reached the door, some men wanted to put a lance through the bear. He said to them, shall the Romans say they have pierced their master? They wanted to give it a push. He said to them, shall they say that they pushed their master? They opened the gate for him and they got out. End quote. And that's found in Gideon, page 56. Maybe that's chapter 56. The following passage describes the meeting where Zacchaeus indicates that Vespasian is to be the God of the Jews. Though Zacchaeus uses the word king, the scriptural passages he applies to Vespasian each pertain not to the coming of a king, but of God. We would note that in a number of the versions of this story, Zacchaeus addresses Vespasian with the expression, peace to you, O king. Peace to you, O king, in Latin, a Latin-speaking rabbi being another of the links between Rome and the founders of rabbinical Judaism. We have 51 minutes. We're going to definitely not finish reading this today, but we're going to get through a couple more pages because we're already at 51 minutes. Quote, when he reached the Romans, he said, peace to you, O king, peace to you, O king. He, Vespasian, said, your life is forfeit on 2 counts. 1, because I am not a king, and you call me a king. And again, if I am a king, why did you not come to me before now? He replied, as for your saying that you are not a king, in truth, you are a king, since if you were not a king, Jerusalem would not be delivered into your hand. As it is written, and Lebanon shall fall by a mighty one. Mighty one is an epithet applied only to a king, as it is written, and their mighty one shall be of themselves, etc. And Lebanon refers to the sanctuary, as it says, this goodly mountain in Lebanon. Gideon, chapter 56, end quote. The author is again making a point that by using the beginning of a biblical passage that he expects an informed reader to know in total. When Zacchaeus states, and their mighty one shall be of themselves, etc., he is referring to Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 21. Below is a complete passage. Quote, and their mighty one shall be of themselves, and their governor shall proceed from the midst of them. And I shall cause him to draw near, and he shall approach unto me. For who is this that engaged his heart to approach unto me, saith the Lord? And ye shall be my people, and I will be your God. End quote. And that's Jeremiah chapter 30, verses 21 through 22. As in the fanciful story above regarding the delicate woman, the author has searched through the scripture to find just the right phrase to communicate his real point. Here, the passage from Jeremiah indicates that their governor shall proceed from the midst of them and shall approach unto me, can certainly be seen as a description of Zacchaeus coming to Vespasian, who is known to have seen himself as God, and therefore can logically be seen as the Lord who will be your God. In other words, Caesar has replaced Yahweh. The author of the Talmudic story actually assists the reader in seeing the implication of the part of the passage he does not quote by including the expression, etc., at the conclusion of the sentence. This interpretation is especially plausible in light of the fact that a major goal for the Romans in their war with the Jews was to establish Caesar as the God of the Jews. In fact, at this point in history, what other incentive would have been sufficient to induce the Flavians to establish a Judaic academy in Judea? Further, within Caesar's Messiah, the Flavians are shown to have applied Judaic scriptures to themselves to prove that they were gods, the same technique that Zacchaeus used in the conversation with Vespasian. Since the Flavians set themselves up as God and the Son of God of Christianity without its faithful knowing it, it is hardly surprising that they achieve the same thing with rabbinical Judaism, a religion that they are known to have controlled from its beginning. The Talmudic tale then continues with a description of the meeting between Vespasian and Zacchaeus. The following passage contains perhaps the most telling application of Scripture to Vespasian. God turneth wise men backward and maketh their knowledge foolish. Quote, As for your question, why if you are a king, I did not come until now, the answer is that the Birioni among us did not let me. He said to him, If there is a jar of honey round which a serpent is wound, would they not break the jar and get rid of the serpent? He could give no answer. R. Joseph, or as some say, R. Akiba, applied to him the verse, God turneth wise men backward and maketh their knowledge foolish. He ought to have said to him, We take a pair of tongs and grip the snake and kill it and leave the jar intact. End quote. And that's found in Gittin chapter 56. The phrase, God turneth wise men backward and maketh their knowledge foolish, comes from Isaiah chapter 44, the passage in which God reiterates his chosen people contract with Israel. For Zedekiah to apply it to Vespasian simply underlines the meaning of his previous applications from the Bible. That is to say, Vespasian is the God of the Jews. Whether or not one accepts the interpretation of the passage given here, there is something wrong, something illogical with the founder of rabbinical Judaism applying a precise litany of scriptures to Vespasian that on its face indicates he sees Vespasian as God. Again, this is clearly suspicious historically, as the only religion that the Flavians would have permitted in Judea at this time was one that worshipped them, and Zedekiah's circumstances indicate that he needed something to bargain with. By applying Isaiah chapter 44 to Vespasian, Zedekiah is reversing the passage's original meaning, which was that the God of Israel was stronger than other gods. Within the context of Zedekiah's usage, it is Vespasian who is the stronger God, which was, of course, the Flavian perspective. By defeating Yahweh's chosen people, Vespasian had proven that Caesar was the greater God. Zedekiah's application of the phrase, quote, that frustrateth the tokens of the liars, and maketh diviners mad, that turneth wise men backward, and maketh their knowledge foolish, end quote, indicates the ability of God, that is, Vespasian, to turn the wisdom and knowledge of the wise men against themselves. In other words, by recording that Zedekiah believed Vespasian was God, the Flavian Caesars were able to have rabbinical Judaism worship them without its followers knowing it, exactly as they had done to the converts of Christianity. The use of Isaiah 44 in this context seems to be a comment upon Maccabean Judaism. Notice below that the worship of half-burnt and roasted meat is condemned as a form of idolatry. These concepts link the passage to the fate of the real Messiah presented in Caesar's Messiah, who was roasted and half-eaten by his mother. The phrase also states that it would be an abomination to fall down before the stock of a tree and worship a false god, which is transfigured by the Talmud into a reference to the worship of the Christians of their crucified Messiah. Quote, no, it's giving us the whole chapter. Okay. It's Isaiah 44, and it's starting at verse 5 all the way to verse 25. Pay attention. Yahuwah is one. Shalom. Yet now hear, O Jacob my servant, and Israel whom I have chosen. Thus saith the Lord, the King of Israel, and his Redeemer, the Lord of hosts. I am the first, and I am the last, and besides me there is no God. Fear ye not, neither be afraid. Have I not told thee from that time, and have declared it? Ye are even my witnesses. Is there a God beside me? Yea, there is no God. I know not any. They that make a graven image are all of them vanity, and their delectable things shall not profit, and they are their own witnesses. They see not, nor know that they may be ashamed. Who have formed a god, or molten a graven image that is profitable for nothing? Behold, all his fellows shall be ashamed, and the workmen, they are of men. Let them all be gathered together. Let them stand up. Yet they shall fear, and they shall be ashamed together. The smith with the tongs both worketh in the coals, and fashion it with hammers, and worketh it with the strength of his arms. Yea, he is hungry, and his strength faileth. He drinketh no water, and is faint. The carpenter stretcheth out his rule. He marketh it out with a line. He fitted it with planes. He marketh it out with the compass, and maketh it after the figure of a man, according to the beauty of a man, that it may remain in the house. He hewed him down cedars, and taketh the cypress and the oak, which he strengtheneth for himself among the trees of the forest. He planteth an ash, and the rain doth nourish it. Then shall it be for a man to burn, for he will take thereof, and warm himself. Yea, he kindleth it, and baketh bread. Yea, he maketh a god, and worshipeth it. He maketh it a graven image, and falleth down thereto. He burneth half of it in the fire, with part thereof he eateth flesh. He roasteth roast, and is satisfied. Yea, he warmeth himself, and saith, Aha, I am warm, I have seen the fire. And the residue thereof he maketh a god, even his graven image. He falleth down unto it, and worshipeth it, and prayeth unto it, and saith, Deliver me, for thou art my God. They have not known nor understood, for he hath shut their eyes that they cannot see, and their hearts that they cannot understand. And none considereth in his heart, neither is there knowledge nor understanding to say, I have burnt part of it in the fire. Yea, also I have baked bread upon the coals thereof. I have roasted flesh and eaten it, and I shall make the residue thereof an abomination. Shall I fall down to the stock of a tree? And I know we read this in the New Living Translation, so if you're keeping up, you will realize that this dude decided to make him a god, right? But before he made the god, he got all the ingredients and everything, and he actually cooked it. He ate it, he burned it in the fire, and what was left of what he roasted and ate, that was what he made into the god, and he fell down before it and worshipped it, right? He said, what kind of God is this? And none considereth in his heart, neither is there knowledge nor understanding to say, I have burnt part of it in the fire. Yea, also I have baked bread upon the coals thereof. I have roasted flesh and eaten it. And shall I make the residue thereof an abomination? Shall I fall down to the stock of a tree? He feedeth on ashes. A deceived heart hath turned him aside, that he cannot deliver his soul, nor say, Is there not a lie in my right hand? Remember these, O Jacob and Israel, for thou art my servant. I have formed thee, thou art my servant. O Israel, thou shalt not be forgotten of me. Sing, O ye heavens, for the Lord hath done it. Shout, ye lower parts of the earth. Break forth into singing, O ye mountains, O forests, and every tree therein. For the Lord hath redeemed Jacob, and glorified himself in Israel. Girl, cough like into that blanket or your arm or something. Don't cough on me. Thus saith the Lord, thy Redeemer, he that formeth thee from the womb. I am the Lord that maketh all things, that stretcheth forth the heavens alone, that spreadeth abroad the earth by myself. He that frustrateth the tokens of the liars, and maketh diviners mad, that turneth wise men backward, and maketh their knowledge foolish. End quote. And that's Isaiah chapter 44, verses 5 through 25. Okay. Finally, there is another comic point created by linking this particular passage from Isaiah to the dialogue regarding the honeypot that is surrounded by a serpent. By claiming that Vespasian will turn wise men backward, Sakai is indicating that the purpose of the new Flavian religion of rabbinical Judaism, which was to use the honeypot of their religion to control the masses. I'm gonna read that again. Hold on. By claiming that Vespasian will turn wise men backward, Zakai is indicating the purpose of the new Flavian religion of rabbinical Judaism, which was to use the honeypot of their religion to control the masses. Within the context of the conversation, the serpent is clear enough. It refers to the messianic zealots who controlled the city. The honeypot, therefore, is Judaism itself, and is being referred to here as such because the Flavians recognized that the messianic religion could be used for control over the hoi polloi. Remember, the hoi polloi is the common people, us little folk, right? The Messiah and Judaism were not to be broken, but rather were a honeypot to be preserved as used by the imperial family to control its subjects. And this is where we will pause today. When we come back tomorrow, I'll probably reread this last paragraph and then continue on with the rest of chapter 14 and finish it up tomorrow. All right, y'all. Tootie, you got to get up because you're going to make this fall. All right, so it's page 418. All right, beautiful people. It is Tuesday, November the 30th, 2021. It is day 315 of year 3 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets. And of the 3-year consecutive day count, day 983. We read Psalms 140 through 143. And we read some more chapter 14 of Shakespeare's Secret Messiah, starting on page 402 all the way to page 418. All right, y'all. We'll definitely be able to finish up this chapter tomorrow. Then we start the last chapter, which is chapter 15. It's the conclusion. Yeah. All right, y'all. Let's do the blessing.
Well, you alone.
Okay.
Far more.
All right, y'all. So remember, the blessing is found. Y'all know where.
Mommy, you didn't download it.
I didn't download it. You know what? Here's something crazy that I keep noticing. This is wild. I don't know. I think my thing is voice activated. I've been noticing this for like the last week. When I go pull up the blessing, normally when I open this back up, it's on the last. It should have been on the Shema, which was the last thing that I had it on. And when I close it, it should go back to the last thing. But when I say the blessing, it just like when I open it back up, it's like already there. It's weird. It's almost like how sometimes I think the internet algorithms be listening. Well, I definitely know when I say stuff out loud, depending on what it is, the speaker or whatever app that I'm in will pick up what I said and now start seeing recommendations for that type of thing. Or me and my husband could be sitting having a conversation, and then we could get on Facebook and we start seeing ads for this particular thing we was talking about. And we're like, what? You know, so clearly we know they're listening, right? And if you haven't read their terms and conditions and their privacy policy, they let you know they're listening to you, right? But most people, they're like, oh, we're going to accept. What is you doing? Because if you don't accept and agree to their terms and conditions or their privacy policy, then you agree, cough in your arm, you agree not to use their app or whatever it is that you want to use, right? Even Apple with their phones and stuff, when they do the updates, even when you first start using brand new phone, you always have to accept their terms and conditions. Most people don't read them. They just, scroll all the way to the bottom and hit accept, right? Nobody ever really reads it, but then everybody start complaining when stuff start happening. You find out your information is being used, but you really couldn't get away with that in a court of law, right? Because they're going to pull up their terms and agreements and their privacy policy and see that you agreed to it, right? I'm just saying, y'all might want to start reading terms and conditions. Like, I guess it really don't bother me because they ain't really, I don't know. I mean, I guess people could take anything, any of your information, and steal it and do with it whatever they want to do with it.
Mommy.
But I'm just saying, just know.
Mommy, the blessing.
Your stuff is being looked at, right? And if you wanna remove yourself from it, you probably should get off of all social media and everything. But if you already been up there, it doesn't even matter because you've been up there. What goes into the net is kept in the net. So if you was up there for the last 10 years, you decide you gonna go off a grid, they still know everything unless you completely change your whole life. Like you move away, like you gotta stop using everything. And then all they have is what you posted up until that last date. But still, they probably still be able to find you because all your family and friends ain't changing all their stuff. So once you into it, they pretty much can track you forever.
Mommy, the blessing.
I'm just saying. All
blessing.
Right. Yes, we're about to do the blessing. The blessing is found in Numbers chapter 6, verses 22 through 27. Remember the first 21 verses is... She in here sniffing the weather is changing and they be running in and out without their jackets and stuff and I'm like, put on your jacket, and they, children think they're invincible, right? But it's good for them. Get the immune system stronger. Should be good. Fill her up with juices and berries and stuff, so should be all right. And Yahuwah spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and unto his sons, saying on this wise, Ye shall bless the children of Israel, saying unto them, Yahuwah will kneel before us, presenting gifts, and will guard us with a hedge of protection. Yahuwah will illuminate the wholeness of his being towards us, bringing order, and he will provide us with love, sustenance, and friendship. Yahuwah will lift up his wholeness of being and look upon us, and he will set in place all we need to be whole and complete. And they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. All right, beautiful people. I love y'all. I see y'all tomorrow morning, bright and early, 7:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. To go ahead and get us some orange juice. Juice some oranges. Make some fresh orange juice. Knock this out. All right, y'all. Love y'all.
Mommy.
See y'all tomorrow. Bruce. Yes, babe.
You give me some ice cream.
No ice cream. How about we juice you some orange juice or fresh apple juice? See, you're coughing and hacking and you want ice cream. Girl, in this video.
I just want the others movie.
How about we make you some ice cream, make you some sherbet ice cream with fresh oranges and apples, and we put it in the Vitamix and make it ourselves. Bye, y'all. I'm about to end this myself. She tripping. Go ahead, end it. All right, y'all. Bruce. And that one.